And the concept is to give the moral support, to let the people of Israel realize that they're not alone, that they stand together with the United States and all the people throughout the world that are free and want freedom.
Dowd says when he gets back to Miami Beach, he'll organize an effort to help the area rebuild. U.S. and Saudi military officials say American warplanes apparently succeeded in knocking out a pumping station that was feeding the massive oil spill in the Gulf. But while the torrent of crude oil might have been halted, an incredible amount of oil remains in the water. Estimates range up to 460 million gallons, by far the largest oil spill in history. And to give you an idea of exactly how large the oil spill is, the estimated size of the slick measures 10 by 35 miles. Lengthwise, it would stretch from downtown Miami to Deerfield Beach.
5,000 people really take their fish and their protein from the sea. So if massive fish kills and so forth occur, it could hurt the sustenance of the people.
And one of the proposals to clean up this spill is with dispersants, which, as you know, many of them are toxic. Can we do it without further damaging the environment?
Yeah, the tongue is coming down here along the Saudi border, and the corals are in here, so that if the leading edge were dispersed with non-toxic dispersants, of which there are only 3, the corals would live and the stuff would flush out of the basin, go into the deeper water. I think that's the whole strategy with dispersants. There isn't enough mechanical to border up this whole Saudi coastline, which is about 400 miles long.
Okay, Dr. Anitra Thorhog, a marine biologist, and I'm sure we'll be checking it back with her, not only today, but later on to check on the path and update you on this spill. Peggy, Art, back to you.
All right, Dan, thank you very much. Dan Fabrizio reporting live from Miami. Peggy?
Diplomatic efforts having been exhausted to resolve the matter peacefully, then the use of force is moral.
There will be unprecedented security on Capitol Hill during the president's speech. It is feared with a full session of Congress, the Capitol would be a prime target for terrorists during the Persian Gulf War.
Checking out his house.
On the home front in tonight's State of the Union address.
And Saddam Hussein is raising the stakes in the Gulf War in his first interview since the war began. Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the Gulf War. I'm Charles Molyneux.
And I'm Barbara Beck, and here are the latest developments. For the first time since the war in the Gulf began, Saddam Hussein has spoken to a Western reporter. CNN's Peter Arnett was summoned to meet the leader last night in Baghdad. We begin our Team 7 coverage with Arnett's chilling interview with Saddam. He says the Iraqi president shows no signs of backing down on any issue. Arnett says during their talk, Saddam claimed that the missiles his military has fired at Saudi Arabia and Israel have chemical, biological, and nuclear capability.
He said that missiles fired at Israel and Saudi Arabia, which he proudly called al-Hussein missiles, which were adaptations of the Scud Soviet missiles, he said they have nuclear, chemical, and biological capabilities. But he did comment, he said all the air superiority you see now that has come upon us has failed. He said we have maintained our balance using only conventional weapons. He added, we pray that not a lot of blood will be shed from any nation. We pray we shall not be forced in taking a forced measure.
This morning, Iraqi radio reports some of the Allied prisoners of war have been injured in the U.S. bombings on Baghdad. Saddam told Arnett he has his reasons for using the captured pilots as human shields.
The Iraqi president said Iraqi students were being unfairly interned in the West and in England and maybe elsewhere, and there are restrictions, he said, on Arabs of Iraqi descent. I asked about how his human shield decision squared with his promise the day after the war to treat captured soldiers according to the Geneva Conventions. He responded, does the Geneva Convention allow Iraqi students to be imprisoned in the West?
Arnett said throughout the interview Saddam was confident that he will be the victor in this war. However, he suggested Baghdad might be forced to take drastic action.
Towards the conclusion of the interview, I asked if he had any doubts about the outcome, about the victory he was talking so much about. He answered confidently, not even 1 in a million. I asked at the conclusion what message he hoped would come through in his interview. He said, I wish the Americans well and pray none of their sons will die.
We now have word on those POWs Saddam has decided to use as human shields. Iraqi radio is reporting today that some of the POWs may have been killed during overnight Allied bombing raids. The report did not give names or nationalities of the airmen or where the men are being held. CNN is expecting to have tape in soon on Saddam's interview, and we'll show that to you as soon as they get it in.
All is quiet in Saudi Arabia this morning after another Scud missile attack. Air raid sirens sounded throughout the city of Riyadh last night, but U.S. Patriot missiles were able to intercept the Iraqi Scud. Sirens reportedly went off on the neighboring island of Bahrain, but there were no explosions or any reports of explosions, and nobody was hurt. This was the 27th Scud fired at Saudi Arabia. Debris from the missiles fell on a vegetable farm several miles away from the city. Reports say pieces of twisted metal were scattered over a large area of the farm. It knocked holes in some greenhouses, but there wasn't much damage. And there, too, nobody got hurt. Iraq also launched a Scud attack on Israel last night, but this time the rocket was not intercepted by a U.S. Patriot missile. It landed on Arab villages in the occupied West Bank. That area is filled with Palestinians who support Hussein. Nobody was reported hurt. The Israeli military has not said why Patriot missiles were not launched.
U.S. military officials have released some amazing video of the largest ground shelling attack on Iraq. U.S. Marines pounded Iraqi targets 6 miles into Kuwait. Our Team 7 coverage continues with CNN's Linda Patillo, who is on the front line.
Marine artillery batteries prepare for a midnight raid on Iraqi forces.
Our target is a truck park area.
The Marines will fire their most powerful guns yet in this conflict, self-propelled 8-inch howitzers, the most accurate weapon in their arsenal. How accurate is this?
Accurate enough to cause a lot of death and destruction on old Saddam.
We could shoot a gnat off Saddam Hussein's backside.
With 1 hour to go, the Marine guns move into place. They set their sights 6 miles across the border.
23907, check.
The shells are loaded with fuses. Each round will fire nearly 100 high-explosive bomblets.
We will destroy some of Saddam's gear and equipment.
I have a little bit of butterflies in the stomach because you want to do everything right and get it done safely and get out of there before he returns fire.
1 minute before midnight, they fire in unison. At least one gun is slowed by mechanical problems, but within 13 minutes, they have fired 72 rounds. By the time the last rounds are fired, the Marines move out quick. The most dangerous part of this raid is getting out before the Iraqis fire back. An hour later, the raid completed. The only damage is a broken nose.
Very good. Very good. First.
Finally got a chance to do what we've
Been waiting to do. I really wanted to see some men coming around.
They believe they hit their target, but they will not know for sure until daylight. But for young Marines who now have their first war story to tell, this first experience in combat will be remembered, no matter what its success. This is Linda Patillo with the 2nd Division Marines on the Kuwaiti border.
The U.S. air attack shows no signs of letting up. The Pentagon says 25,000 missions have been flown against Iraq, and the effort is going well. About half of those flights were actual combat missions. U.S. Navy planes were active yesterday. They attacked Iraqi patrol boats in a Persian Gulf waterway and in Kuwait City's harbor. And one Marine jet was reported lost in yesterday's combat.
Iraq claims dozens of civilians have been hurt or killed in Allied bombing attacks, and it's sending conflicting reports on the amount of medical care available there. Some doctors in Iraq say the country is dangerously low on medical supplies, but others say they have plenty of them. Baghdad says Allied bombings have killed 60 civilians. American military officials have a mystery on their hands this morning. Why have more than 80 Iraqi planes been flown into Iran? Our Team 7 coverage of this Gulf crisis continues with Varun Black. She joins us live from our satellite desk with some possible answers. Varun?
Charles, U.S. officials are worried that it may be a trick, but they say it is unlikely. Now, the planes all made it over the border to Iran in spite of Allied efforts to stop them. Now, 60 of them are fighters and bombers. While U.S. military officials are staying alert, they don't think an attack from the fighters in Iran is very possible.
that they're going to have much of the capability to launch strikes from Iran where they don't have the ammunition storage, where they don't have the repair part storage, where they don't have training facilities and other things.
Now, the State Department says it doesn't know if the pilots are defecting. Iran says the planes and the pilots will remain on the ground until the war is over. And it says the pilots are being questioned. Now, Saddam Hussein claims Iran is doing him a favor by helping to shield the planes from Allied attacks. He says Iraq and Iran have a Muslim bond that unites them against the Allied forces. Back to you, Charles.
Thank you, Vera. That's Channel 7's Baron Black at our satellite desk. Barbara?
The U.S. says the flow of Kuwaiti crude oil into the Persian Gulf has slowed to a trickle, thanks to the U.S. airstrike on the pipelines 2 nights ago. But it may be too late. Already, some 460 million gallons of oil have spilled into the Gulf, and that makes it almost 3 times the size of the world's largest previous spill. American environmental experts are in Saudi Arabia today. They say the oil spill is already threatening Saudi Arabia's water supply. The oil slick is coming dangerously close to the plant that converts salt water to fresh water. That plant supplies water to most of eastern Saudi Arabia.
Terrorists are keeping up their war for Saddam Hussein this morning. For the 2nd day in a row, they've struck in Greece and Turkey. Several bombs went off today in Izmir, Turkey. The targets were the buildings of 2 American organizations and the French consulate. So far, no one has taken credit for the bombings. And in Athens, a rocket grenade tore through the offices of British Petroleum this morning. Nobody was hurt. Despite stepped-up security, American, British, and French targets have been bombed 6 times since the war started.
President Bush is sure to mention the war and the threats of terrorism in his State of the Union speech tonight. As the president puts the finishing touches on his address this morning, security on Capitol Hill is about the tightest it's ever been. And it will be the first wartime State of the Union address since Vietnam. Channel 7's Mark Ludner is in Washington for the president's speech. It begins tonight at 9 o'clock. We'll bring it to you live here on Channel 7. We'll also have reaction and a complete wrap-up on Channel 7 News at 10.
It's 10 after 9 right now. Still ahead, some major stories are unfolding right here in South Florida. South Florida City Manager.
The next 24 hours. Clear skies over the northeast, too, from along the coast of Maine all the way to Boston and New York City. Big ridge of high pressure has poised right on in and, well, actually
maintain the balance using only conventional weapons. But he says he isn't ruling out the use of chemical weapons, saying, "We pray that not a lot of blood will be shed from any nation. We pray we shall not be forced into taking a forced measure." Then Saddam says Western politicians lied to him by attacking even after he released hostages. He says if we had kept these 5,000 hostages here, would Bush have bombed Baghdad? Asked what good could come from his CNN interview, the Iraqi president answered, "I wish the Americans well and pray none of their sons will die, and that all the people of Iraq are grateful to noble souls in America demonstrating against the war in France, in Germany, in Spain, and all others." And asked whether he had doubts of an Iraq victory, he answered, "Not even 1 in a million."
The White House dismisses the comments as propaganda, saying Saddam Hussein's threats are repeats of comments Washington has heard before. Art?
This morning, there have been more reports that Iraqi soldiers are growing more unhappy with their government. Allied estimates of defecting pilots and planes range as high as 100. Saddam Hussein has reportedly ordered deserters to face firing squads. More financial support for the Gulf War is on the way. Today, Germany pledged an extra $5.5 billion to cover expenses in Operation Desert Storm. Germany also says it will send more equipment and troops to the war area to help in combat. Although Germany is pledging air support, it has not committed any ground troops until now. Iraq has released pictures they say are from Allied air raids on residential areas. Iraqi television claims these shots come from the city of Basra near the Kuwaiti border. Other pictures reportedly show remains of the city Anajaf. Also this morning, new pictures of the Gulf oil spill from outer space. The black area is smoke. The part that appears silvery is the actual oil slick. The Saudis say more than 460 million gallons of oil have spilled into the Gulf.
As the world scientists work to find a way to deal with this enormous oil spill, American inventors are offering their own solutions. Reporter Bill Hillman explains the idea behind oil-eating microbes.
A team of experts from the Coast Guard and the EPA has arrived in Saudi Arabia to consider that problem. Basically, here's how it works out. Perhaps 30% of the oil will evaporate. Another small fraction will sink to the bottom. That leaves well over half still on the surface to kill birds and animals.
And narcotics paraphernalia. city commissioners have called an emergency meeting for this afternoon to discuss the manager's future.
Children in a Northwest
Eyewitness News reporter Dan Fabrizio is in Wynwood to explain how. Dan?
Diana, the ceremony has just ended, a groundbreaking ceremony for renovations here at Roberto Clemente Park. This was the gathering point for what ultimately became the civil disturbances in Wynwood late last year. Those disturbances, as you all remember, were caused by the acquittal of 6 Miami police officers in the beating death of Leonardo Mercado. City officials were out here today to kick off the $1.9 million renovation. A lot of the folks out here in Wynwood, especially the younger people, say all this happened because of Leonardo Mercado, and Mayor Xavier Suarez of Miami says to a certain extent that's true.
We admit it, we moved a little quicker. It was on the agenda for the commission meeting right after the disturbances, so it wasn't entirely related to the negative things that happen around here, but sometimes good things happen as a result of negative things.
As I mentioned, the cost of the project, $1.1 million. They've been trying to upgrade this park since 1982. They finally, in 1988, allotted the City Commission of Miami-Dade
County has had a drug court to rehabilitate users without putting them in jail or putting violent criminals on the streets.
Locate and destroy Scud locations to break communication lines and to attack the elite Iraqi Republican Guard. Since yesterday, 1 more American pilot is missing in action, bringing the total now to 15 air crewmen missing. And while the ground assault appears imminent, several commanders in Saudi Arabia say they are not yet ready for that sort of war. But during the daily military briefing in Saudi Arabia today, Brigadier General Pat Stevens would not comment on whether ground troops are ready or under what conditions a ground attack would be launched.
But I will not give out information that in any way endangers the lives of the coalition forces, and I think you can understand that. And if I give you sort of a general conception of what may or may not happen based on what set of circumstances, then that's just one more piece of information for the enemy, and I really don't want to do that. Yes, sir.
But the general did say some ground troops are continuing to take part in the overall effort to eliminate Iraqi mobile missile sites and are exchanging fire with enemy soldiers.
Our ground forces remain in a defense...
One possibility is that the pilots are anxious about their lives.
According to the Iranian news agency, several of those Iraqi planes made emergency landings, and a number of them crashed before landing. Iran says it will not release the jets until the end of the Gulf War.
This afternoon, another Allied pilot is missing in action.
Or could be wildlife in the Persian Gulf. It's Fort Lauderdale home. The city council meets this afternoon to decide what actions to take. The suspended mayor of Hialeah back in court today, Raul Martinez, entering the second day of testimony in his racketeering and corruption trial, a trial that's expected to last several months. Martinez is accused of granting favorable zoning changes in exchange for money and property.
Some good economic news on the global front today. Things finally seem to be leveling off since the Gulf War broke out. From New York to Tokyo, activity was a little more subdued as investors reacted to economic rather than military considerations. Investors as a whole waiting for some decisive development in the war. Tackling money worries facing military families is just one of the ways the Channel 4 News Help Center...
It was on the agenda for the commission meeting right after the disturbances, so it wasn't entirely related to the negative things that happen around here, but sometimes good things happen as a result of negative things.
Renovations should be completed by March of next year. Still ahead, Bob Weaver has our forecast both here and in the Gulf. He joins us next.
A special yellow ribbon takes up city streets in a big way to remember troops in the Gulf.
And winners at the American Music Awards let U.S. fighters know they are not...
The bombings over Iraq continue, and Iraqi reports that a United States or British prisoner of war was killed during an attack on a government building. Meanwhile, Iraq is releasing pictures, it says, are from Allied air raids on residential areas, but it's not clear when these pictures were taken or where they were actually taken from. The Persian Gulf is still suffocating under a reported 460 million gallons of spilled oil. Oil experts say the slick is several days away from a Saudi desalinization plant. Today, new pictures from space were released. The black area is smoke. The part that looks silvery is the actual oil slick. Environmentalists say so much crude has been poured into the Gulf that an ecological catastrophe is certain.
In other action today, naval officers say United States fighter bombers knocked out 2 Iraqi missile sites, an oil storage facility, and bombed Iraq's elite Republican Guard. Dwight?
Israel's defense minister said today his country will have to retaliate within a month unless the Allied forces stop the onslaught. This is the first time a specific time frame has been given. His comments came after the first Iraqi attacks to affect Palestinians in the occupied territories. The lone Scud fired last night caused no injuries, but did carve out a huge crater and damaged trees. A defense ministry spokesman hoped the attack would make Palestinians rethink their support for Saddam Hussein. Some South Floridians might soon find out what Israelis are going through on the war front. A group called Volunteers for Israel left Miami International Airport today on a mission of mercy. As Eyewitness News reporter Patty Oates tells us, they're giving up the comforts of home to help out in the war-torn state.
They say it is because they are so blessed in this country that they are willing to leave it and help another. 20 South Floridians called Volunteers for Israel are heading for Tel Aviv to take over civilian jobs there, freeing up Israelis to serve in the army.
They want to go because they're incensed at what's happening in Israel right now with the Scuds.
For 8 years now, the organization has routinely provided aid to Israel. But this flight aboard El Al Airlines was organized as an emergency after the first Scud missiles hit Tel Aviv nearly 2 weeks ago.
Please introduce yourself and thank you for coming.
Each volunteer is paying up to $900 for the chance to live and work at an army barracks, a kibbutz, or an Israeli hospital.
I couldn't be happy here watching everything on TV. I picked myself up and said, I'm going. That's it.
I feel that I can make a contribution there, and that's just my way of helping.
So this is my way of going and helping both the United States and Israel at the same time.
Most of the volunteers say they're not worried about their safety.
I found it to be a lot peaceful there, that people are concerned about each other's lives, and they protect each other. So I feel very well protected when I go there.
Most of these passengers will return in about 3 weeks, but some of them will stay behind, and they'll be joined by yet another group of volunteers from South Florida that could number as many as 100 people leaving here next month. At Miami International Airport, Patty Oates, Channel 10 Eyewitness News.
The volunteers will arrive in Israel tomorrow afternoon. They won't know until then about their specific assignments. Ann?
No surprise that terrorist attacks appear to be on the rise since the Gulf War broke out. Athens, Greece was the site of another bomb blast early this morning. The offices of British Petroleum were hit. No one was hurt, and no one has claimed responsibility for the explosion. Athens police believe the attack is a show of support for Saddam Hussein. Yesterday, a similar attack in Athens devastated an American Express office. In other developments, France's defense minister resigned today. He had openly opposed the country's involvement in the war, and the Pentagon says 7 American airmen who had been listed as missing in action are now considered prisoners of war.
The Gulf War will be the highlight of the President's State of the Union address tonight, which, of course, you can see right here on ABC starting at 9 o'clock. Now, he's expected to focus very little on domestic issues. Eyewitness News Washington Bureau Chief Tina Galland has more on what the President's going to say. She joins us live from our nation's capital. Tina?
Dwight, the U.S. Capitol is under heavy guard tonight. Bomb detection teams are patrolling the grounds around the building, and inside everyone, VIPs included, are being subjected to very careful security searches, all to make sure there will be no incident that interferes with the president's speech. The FBI says it's safe to go on about our business as usual, but there was nothing ordinary about security on Capitol Hill today.
The State of the Union is a very important meeting for security.
Streets blocks from the Capitol were closed to traffic. The public was barred from the building mid-afternoon as bomb-sniffing dogs combed the corridors of Congress. Even cars carrying White House officials and senators were screened. President Bush has made it clear terrorist threats won't make him a prisoner at the White House.
I am not going to screech my life to a halt out of some fear about Saddam Hussein.
So today he carried on welcoming the Egyptian foreign minister to the White House and meeting with his cabinet, briefing them on his speech, which the White House says will reflect the president's thinking on the Gulf War, what it means for the country, for the economy, and for domestic programs. Mr. Bush is also expected to express his outrage over Iraq's treatment of prisoners of war. At the Capitol, police worried less about what the president will say tonight than how safe he'll be saying it. Usually the president's motorcade leaves from the driveway on the South Lawn right behind the White House and then travels here along Pennsylvania Avenue up to the Capitol building. But tonight we're told the Secret Service plans to alter the downtown traffic route. That means we really can't tell you how Mr. Bush will get from here to there. Unlike last year, this wartime State of the Union calls for extraordinary precautions.
Wolf, I can't tell you there's terrorists everywhere. I can say, though, that there are people in South Florida who have the propensity to engage themselves in terrorist acts.
As Fernandez made his first appearance in court today, federal agents say they're trying to trace the explosions to see where they came from and see if Fernandez ever sold any to someone who really might be inclined to use them. In Miami, Brad Berkey, Channel 10, Eyewitness News.
Fernandez is being held tonight on a $250,000 bond.
It's time now for our first look at weather with Don Noah. It still feels like summer in January.
Here, and of course, coming along the Persian Gulf. The area we're going to concentrate right now is right here, because this is where some tanks apparently coming out of this area. Let's take a look at a graphic that we've prepared for you right now. That is the graphic, and as you can see, planes coming from Dhahran have actually made their first strike on many of the tanks that are actually in the desert in that southern flank. As you can see, the planes are most likely A-10s, those Thunderbolts that are also called tank killers, which is in fact what they have done. They have destroyed some of the... And most certainly, that is a blow to that elite Republican Guard for the Iraqis. A second maneuver is being done by the United States. This began late last night, our time. Let us show you some pictures of where this is taking place. This is a howitzer, a marine howitzer. Now, this is part of that division that I just showed you with my hand that's on that corner of northern Saudi Arabia and southern Kuwait and southern Iraq. They are firing howitzers in the largest dose that we've seen since this war began into the territory of Kuwait. Now, they are a mile back from the actual Kuwaiti border. Their missiles can actually fire about 6 miles into the Kuwaiti border. I misspoke when I call them missiles, of course, but for the benefit of you for understanding, they're actually being fired 7 miles. We understand more than 72 rounds were fired yesterday, and tonight, U.S. military officials are calling it a success. Penny?
Okay, thanks very much, Rick. Rick Sanchez at the War Map. Tell us.
Still ahead on Channel 7 News, a bomb scare interrupts classes at a South Dade high school. We'll let you know what happened next.
It is a tragic way for a life to end, but at school today, students at South Dade High School scrambled outside after a caller warned a bomb was inside a locker. While checking the lockers, the school official found a tennis can with wires inside of it. He carried it outside where the bomb squad exploded it. Well, turns out that tennis can was filled with sand. Dogs searched the other lockers and found nothing. School resumed after a 90-minute delay.
Tonight, Lauderdale by the Sea's city manager is charged with possession of cocaine. George Spare was arrested last night at his Fort Lauderdale home. Working on a tip, police served a search warrant at Spare's house. BSO detectives say they found a small amount of coke and some drug paraphernalia inside his home. They also found plastic bags with cocaine residue in a trash can outside. Spare has been Lauderdale by the Sea's town manager since 1988.
For a long time now, the Sunshine State has been the place that people came to spend their golden years. Seems that isn't changing. USA Today says right now about 18% of Florida's residents are 65 or older. And by the year 2010, that number is expected to jump to 21%. Arkansas will have the next highest percentage of seniors with 17%.
Well, let's check in with Bob Soper and see what kind of weather we are going to have tomorrow and the rest of the week. Bob.
Gave Miami a stamp of approval.
You've got some very good facilities in Miami. I've been impressed. There are a lot of improvements, both to indoor and outdoor facilities, since I came here in 1983 doing a similar task.
When we initially started this, you have to bid for all 3 dates of 93, 94, 95.
But the availability of venues has changed the group's thinking. The lack of some facilities, including a speed cycle arena, removed 1993 from consideration. And the possibility of the World Cup has eliminated a bid for 94.
In 1995, if you come to South Florida, you will have a velodrome. You will have a new convocation center.
The South Florida group is one of 5 that will make presentations to the USOC's Olympic Festival and Executive Committee. The other cities are Denver, St. Louis, Baltimore, and San Antonio. Now, if the South Florida group is awarded the '95 Olympic Festival, the opening ceremonies will be held here at the Orange Bowl. As for the 37 different sports, they will be held at about 20 different sites throughout Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade counties. So transportation is also a main concern.
They have worked out a bus system, and they have worked out a van system for the athletes on the day that they compete so that they don't have to ride public transportation.
The festival is expected to attract approximately 50,000 people and bring in a projected $70 million. This groundwork is all with the idea to one day host the Olympics.
The Olympics are in '96. We're going to have to wait a little time after that. But if we do a great job, and where we're located, Caribbean, Central, and South American countries, which we want to market this event to, that you've got to come back to Miami.
Now, as far as the presentation, it'll be made Thursday, all 5 groups in Dallas. An announcement won't expect it to be made until Friday morning. The 2 groups that lose out will know Thursday night. We won't be able to tell you then, of course, until Friday morning whether Miami will indeed have the Olympic Festival. As far as the Olympics are concerned, the International Committee doesn't like to award it to the same continent within 12 years of each other. So with Atlanta having it in '96, we're going to have to wait a while. The Miami Heat are in action tonight. They will be at Washington. Sherman Douglas goes home, and Ronnie Cycler.
I like him. He's extremely intelligent.
Commissioner Wally Kilday there, former mayor, he told me that Spare had 2 master's degrees, one in public administration, the other in business. Now, we were not able to reach Spare for comment. At this point, though, the Broward Sheriff's Office detectives are still investigating, and they say more charges are possible. Terry Diane, back to you.
Thank you, Peter Dinch, for that live report from Lauderdale by the Sea. The pilot of a small plane that crashed near Orlando yesterday has now been identified as the South Florida man. Police say that Robert Berry of Miami died when his plane crashed en route to Orlando's executive airport. Berry worked for Flight Express, an Orlando firm that owned the aircraft. Just before he went down, he radioed the tower saying his plane was having mechanical problems. In the sky, sources believe the pilots could be defecting. The first Purple Heart of the Persian Gulf War has been awarded to...
I'm glad I got it, but then it's kind of iffy. I mean, I'm glad I got it, but I wish I would have got it in a different way. I mean, they wish they handed these out for just coming over here or something, but I guess you got to get hurt to get it.
And tonight, Iraq claims an American prisoner of war has died in Baghdad following an Allied raid on the Ministry of Defense. Saddam Hussein's army claims other Americans were injured as a result of urban bombings. Iraq continues to release pictures of residential and commercial neighborhoods that it claims have been destroyed by Allied attacks.
The Saudi front is this one is being sent by satellite.
Yes, I'm very amazed, and I'm very happy that the state offers something like this for its employees.
Tony is a secretary for the Department of Insurance, and during her break, she and many co-workers are writing family and friends in the Gulf. General Electric and Pitney Bowes corporations have set up this computerized mail system for anyone to use free of charge. These letters are delivered in only 3 days. It takes the U.S. mail 3 weeks or longer. And you can even send one from home. All you need is a computer, a modem, and a telephone.
It goes immediately over into the Gulf area, and they have a system over there that's set up that it takes it off there, folds it, puts it in an envelope, and it goes right into the mail system over there and is delivered to...
James Denifield has 2 younger brothers in the Gulf.
I'm proud of my brothers. I know the youngest one, he's a Rambo type, so he'd love this action.
And Big Brother hopes his letters may calm Little Brother down a little. Well, Tony Walker simply hopes her letters keep her brother's spirits up.
Those are our men out there, and I think that the private and the public sector should get involved in doing something like this. Everyone should do it.
At the Capitol, Scott P. Lund, Channel 10, Eyewitness News.
For information on the electronic mail service, you can call GE at 1-800-638-9636. Again, that number is 1-800-638-9636.
Positive towards our efforts. First, if in fact we see the movement of the aircraft because there are defectors in the Iraqi Air Force, that certainly is a significant development. Secondly, if he is trying to harbor the resources there for a later strike, I think that we will be constantly observing his aircraft on the ground there, and should he try that, he's likely to be unsuccessful. I think, lastly, and perhaps most significant, I think this is an indication that the leaders of Iraq are looking at what happens after this war and trying to harbor their resources. So I think that this is the first blink of Mr. Hussein, and it is significant.
All right, Colonel, Iran is now indirectly involved in the war. How could this possibly play into Saddam's military strategy?
Well, I think that they are involved because they are not interested in seeing us inflict significant damage upon the Iraqis so that they would no longer be a power in the region. I also think that the last thing that the Iranians want is for the United States forces to remain in the Middle East a significant period of time after this war.
Israel sounds like it's getting closer to responding to all those Scud attacks, and the ground action is intensifying. So is the war strategy in some respects going Saddam's way? These are things he's been pushing for.
No, I don't think so. I think that the only thing that he has been able to do is he continues to issue threats that are taken seriously. But I don't think that by any measure the war is going his way.
Colonel, thank you for your insight. Steve.
Ecological forces from around the world are gathering for an assault on the giant oil slick in the Persian Gulf. Channel 4's environmental reporter Nick Bogert has the story, including how a technique developed right here in South Florida may help save Saudi reefs. Nick?
Steve, the Pentagon says no new oil is flowing into the Gulf. That's the good news. The bad news is the slick's now about 60 miles by 20 miles, and by one estimate, there's more than 450 still in the Gulf.
Scientists are still working on an overall strategy for the war on the big slick. It'll involve booms to block the oil and perhaps chemicals to break up the slick. And today, a possible new strategy, moving reefs endangered by the oil to safer waters.
We will make arrangement for moving them by plane.
What they're considering is taking corals from the Persian Gulf, corals that soon could be covered in oil, flying them across Saudi Arabia and transplanting them in the Red Sea. Coral transplants are no more common than heart transplants, but some of them have been done successfully here in South Florida.
In the summer of 1984, the freighter Wynwood crushed the corals of Molasses Reef. 5 years later, scientists planted new coral heads on that reef.
I think the program's been very successful.
Mike White was head of the Key Largo Sanctuary when the coral was replanted. He says the Saudis ought to be able to transplant their coral.
I think that the transit will be short enough and they should be kept in seawater that it can survive that and should be handled quickly to be put back in the water.
But transplants are not easy. You have to return the coral to a habitat like the one that it's used to. A lot of study should be done, ideally.
That would be one of my biggest concerns, is they have so much pressure on them to do it today, this minute.
Meanwhile, more conventional oil fighting help is on its way to the Mideast. 90 tons of booms and skimmers are being packed up and sent off from Britain.
The speedier and the faster we can move, then certainly we hope that we can mitigate some of the damage.
More boom being prepared for shipment at this New Orleans plant, and along with oil fighting equipment, some employees are going along to offer advice. They're a little nervous.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm not be concerned for my safety, not taking any chances. Not try to be brave and clean up the oil and, get shot at the same time.
Another concern with transplanting that coral, you could transplant other unfamiliar organisms or even diseases to a new body of water. Finally, word is that President Bush has put in at least a mention of energy conservation in the final draft of the State of the Union address he'll give tonight. Environmentalists worry that his forthcoming energy policy will promote new oil exploration and nuclear power as opposed to beefing up conservation efforts. Steve, there's still no reliable word on when all the details of his energy policy are going to be revealed.
Thank you, Nick. Pam?
Our coverage of the Persian Gulf War continues in the next half hour.
Campbell's attorneys today worked out a deal with the city to keep Strawberries closed. Channel 7's Al Naipo joins us from the former nightclub with a live report. Al?
Joan, after 6 weeks of protesting a city's order to shut down Strawberries 2 Club, Luther Campbell and his attorneys today finally decided not to fight it any longer. It is all spelled out in this letter from Campbell's attorney, in which they say, effective today, they are surrendering their business license. At a news conference today, acting mayor of Hialeah, Julio Martinez, announced that Strawberries is officially closing its doors. A negotiated agreement with the city calls for Strawberries to shut down. Now, in exchange, the city would drop its court case against Strawberries. The agreement would also negate a hearing scheduled for today. This controversy all began last month following a shooting outside Strawberries that left one man dead and another one injured. The city then tried to close the club, saying that Strawberries violated its restaurant license by operating a nightclub.
I tried to negotiate on different occasions with our attorneys, and I kept turning them down. All the offers that were made prior to today were turned down, and basically they knew that I wasn't going to move from my position. We do not want a nightclub operating with a restaurant license in the city of Hialeah.
Now, part of the deal that's worked out between Strawberries and the city of Hialeah still calls for the possibility that Luther Campbell can still apply for another restaurant license or nightclub license without being prejudiced by what happened here today. However, we haven't been able to get in contact with Luther Campbell or his attorneys to see if indeed they're planning to do that. Joan?
All right, Al Naipo live from Hialeah. Thanks, Albert.
aves, diferentes clases de vegetales.
Hay varias clases de comida para diferentes clases de animales. Ahora ella está trabajando para
To reach for the ring, you come to Miami.
Miami is bidding against 4 other cities, Denver, St. Louis, and Baltimore among them. The festival would draw 5,000 athletes and perhaps $70 million to South Florida. Well, remember Ronnie Cycli, that guy who used to play center for the Heat? He could be back in the lineup tonight when the Heat play the Bullets up in Washington.
Renovations were in the works way before neighborhood residents gathered here for a demonstration last year, one that turned into violence, you remember. Community leaders say, though, this is just what they needed.
Now, that's behind us. Let's look forward to the new and wonderful things, and this is the beginning of great things to come. Okay?
Once it is finished, the park named after the Puerto Rican baseball star will offer new basketball courts, picnic areas, and, of course, a baseball field.
And that is it for Channel 7 News at 5:30.
Sally Fitz and Penny Daniels are next.
Environmentalists are now calling the oil spill as big a disaster for the Persian Gulf as the war itself.
Anderson joins us live with that and late developments on Operation Desert Storm. Bonnie?
Teresa, we've only just received parts of the interview with Saddam Hussein from CNN in Baghdad. CNN tells us the feed was cut off because of an Allied bombing raid here on Iraq's capital city.
The fact that God is on our side.
The first pictures and words were brief, but they show us Saddam Hussein standing firm. Much of the interview still hasn't been fed from Baghdad, but CNN reporter Peter Arnett did get a phone line out earlier today to talk about Saddam's message.
I asked, would you use chemical weapons in a land war in Kuwait that will be equitable to weapons used against us by our enemy?
And one of the many Iraqi planes, up to 100 by some counts, that have left Iraq for Iran. Saddam told Arnett he would not rule out using the planes later in the war.
He said that Iraq and Iran are neighboring Muslim countries, and regardless of the circumstances of the past, in both see the current confrontation here as a battle between faith and the infidel.
Saddam has a history of temporarily moving Iraq's planes to safety. Before the start of the Iran-Iraq War, most of Iraq's planes were dispatched to Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Egypt for safe haven, until they were used later in the war. On other fronts, Iraq is releasing very little information on casualties. Only videotape like this, taken by Iraqi officials, is being shown to the outside world. And there is no way to independently confirm when or where it was taken. Refugees streaming out of Iraq into Jordan, however, tell stories of massive damage throughout Baghdad and the countryside. Some evacuees said at least 8 people were killed and 25 wounded in an attack on a convoy of cars filled with civilians. We are still awaiting the rest of that Hussein interview. We hope to have it for you on the Channel 4 News tonight at 11. Back to you, Teresa.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie, for that report. Bob?
President Bush getting ready for tonight's State of the Union address.
Take a hard stand against Iraqi planes fleeing to Iran. Our Team 7 coverage continues now with Channel 7's Rick Chambers, who's joining from our satellite news desk with the very latest. Rick.
Penny, the news from the war front today is both upbeat, but at the same time, some of the reports are quite disturbing. We have word that Iraqi ground forces are being attacked and hit very hard by U.S. air forces. But also we have reports that one Allied POW may have been killed during some of that bombing, as Saddam Hussein follows through on his threats to use the POWs as human shields. Day 13 of the Gulf War has produced reports of heavy Allied air-to-ground attacks against Iraqi ground forces. An Iraqi convoy was caught in the open desert of southern Iraq overnight. Pool reporters say that 24 Iraqi tanks, trucks, and armored personnel carriers were knocked out. U.S. Marines also attacked Iraqi troop placements along the Kuwaiti border, using rockets, mortars, and artillery to destroy Iraqi bunkers. As for the Iraqi planes trying to cross the border into Iran, U.S. commanders now say that they'll shoot down any Iraqi warplanes trying to leave Iraq. It's believed that 90 Iraqi planes have already escaped.
I don't know whether it was something that the Iraqi Air Force decided they wanted to do. I don't know what the discussions have been between Iraq and Iran. I simply don't know. I do know that their combat forces are electing to leave the field, and that is, in my view, a sign of weakness.
As the Allied bombing raids over Iraq continue, there comes word from Iraqi radio that an Allied POW has been killed by the bombing. The unidentified pilot was being held at the Ministry of Industry building in Baghdad, which was hit during an air attack. Now, several other POWs were allegedly wounded. The reports, remember, though, are unconfirmed, and some military experts believe that it may just be psychological warfare by Saddam Hussein. And Penny, the incidents of terrorism also seem to be on the rise these days. We have reports of both bomb and rocket attacks overnight in Athens, Greece, and in Ankara, Turkey. That's the latest from the satellite desk.
Okay, thanks a lot. Rick Chambers.
Channel 4's Beverly White is live in Coral Springs, where security is tight for tonight's big event.
Yes, Teresa, they're expecting anti-war protesters, in addition to the veterans groups and the Desert Storm families, people who are coming out because they know they have a voice in this matter and they want their opinions heard. There's also security concerns tonight, as you mentioned. All bags will be inspected, but they plan choirs and bands and music and speeches for what is truly to be an emotional evening.
We want to allow everybody their rights and their freedoms. We want to protect those who are coming here tonight, though, in order to demonstrate their support inside. Their concerns outside they will be given the right. They will be protected, but we want to make sure that it is a safe event.
Mayor Gene Mills is talking about security for tonight's Patriotic rally, an event fully expected to attract an overflow crowd to the city center, which holds 1,500 people. The city's special response team swept through the auditorium hours before the show just to make sure the area was clear of potential trouble. In just 2 weeks, organizers have pulled together an ambitious and patriotic program.
The sale that they're working on now, they put together a price that they would accept, but no working capital. And if they don't have working capital, they won't have a sale. If it isn't now, it'll be 2 months from now.
Does the development today make you more optimistic?
Well, we have never been out of the picture, but we also have another team that we can close tomorrow if we start building the stadium, and I think we're making plans now.
They feel optimistic about the promises made here today. Others say they still feel disheartened, even resentful over the fact that the city did little for this community until it erupted in flames.
It's sad to see it. Just goes to show the way things are. It takes something heavy like this to happen in order to get people to react.
It's a shame to say that it took this ride to, get everything moving here, but, I know that the mayor is trying to do his part.
Miami Mayor Xavier Suarez admits the project is long overdue.
It is always a concern that one thing seems to result from the other, but as I said before, it's a philosophical problem we all have to deal with, that sometimes good things result from bad things.
Wynwood youths say they won't accept any more excuses from the city. From now on, they vow to keep a close watch on the neighborhood. Jessica Aguirre, Channel 6 Action News.
The professional future of
and apparently it was rigged to be able to be used by alligator clips to the outside phone box.
Call these new bids now.
Maslin says the culprits will be charged with telecommunications theft. Video Jukebox says it deletes all fraudulent calls, no questions asked. In Coral Springs, Susan Kelleher, Channel 7 News.
Oh, that pay-per-song charge.
Most charges in the beating death of drug suspect Leonardo Mercado.
From Miami, and this year Charlene Houghton is being singled out as the Principal of the Year. Houghton is the principal at Miami's Leawood Elementary School. She and the other finalists were praised for their efforts to motivate and to improve students' performances. Dr. Frederick Rogers of Miami Southridge Senior High was the runner-up in the competition. Both those folks will receive cash awards. That's funny.
Very nice. Old principals never die, They just lose their faculties. I heard that once.
I was going to say, is that original? Right here on the spot?
Teachers, so I heard this stuff all the time.
Congratulations, Ms. Thornton, anyhow.
Yep.
I think tonight we're going to hear primarily a speech about the war. The president will be reporting on its status, and then what will be America's position in the world after this war. The events in the Persian Gulf and in the Soviet Union are going to be the dominant factors in his speech.
From what I've seen of the text of the speech so far, the president is not going to talk about the cost of the war. And, Senator, few people are talking about the cost. How are we going to pay for this?
Well, we're going to pay for it by trying to collect as much as we can from our allies. The Germans indicated today they were going to increase their commitment by approximately $5.5 billion. We need to be pushing other allies to do likewise. And then it's going to be financed by you and me and the other citizens of this country.
I don't know about you, but I can't afford to pay for it. We're looking at a $300 billion deficit this year. We clearly have some problems locally, and now we're asking taxpayers to support the war. How can we do that?
Well, I'm afraid the deficit's going to be more than $300 billion. Now, we heard a report today in our committee that indicated that for 1991 we were going to add over $400 billion to the national debt and $415 billion in 1992. So we've got some very massive domestic financial problems, and this war is going to add another layer on top of them.
Could we be talking about a war tax, and if so, would you vote in favor of it?
I don't think we're going to be talking about that now, as we are in a recession. This is not a time in which the government ought to be increasing taxes.
Yeah, but the government can't always control when the bills come due, and if the bill comes due and we don't have the money, what options are left?
Well, the options are to try to get as much financing as we can from our allies, and second, I'm afraid it's going to be to add to the national debt as part of that $400 billion addition that'll be put on in 1991.
Senator Bob Graham, as usual, thank you for joining us on Eyewitness News and shedding your expertise on this issue. And right now, it's
1995 was the time for us to say that South Florida is a place to be. The facilities are excellent. The desire and the commitment is unmatched and unparalleled, and that if you want to put on a festival that's unlike any of the others you've ever done and provides a great gateway to Atlanta for the Olympics in '96, you want to come to South Florida.
We could have an announcement as early as Friday, and this event could generate somewhere in the vicinity of $70 million for our community. Wow. All right, good to have you back, Tom. Nice to be back, Bob. It is 2:24 a.m. now in Saudi Arabia. Don't go away. Coming up next at 6, Brian takes a look at the Saudi weather and South Florida's searing temperatures.
Plus, a wave of support.
In 1995, if you come to South Florida, you will have a velodrome. You will have a new convocation center. The water sports will be totally and completely settled to where they are unparalleled in the world.
Sounds good. The best football team in the world will not have a public celebration back home because of the war. New York Giants.
If you want to see a huge outpouring of spirit and pride for the forces overseas, all you got to do is head out to Coral Springs.
Called Coral Springs' first Patriotic Rally, a star-spangled community tribute to the men and women fighting in the Mideast.
Corporal John A. Boxall, Corporal Matthew Kuhn, Lance Corporal Mark A. Langlois.
1,500 people packed the Coral Springs City Center, and with the help from the city's cable system, about 500 more watched the All-American speeches and songs on monitors outside.
I just want them to come home safely, and I want to let them know that I support them all the way.
It's really terrible about what's happening over there. Just hope they come home safe soon.
Every day we're watching the TV. It's just part of our lives now, so yeah, it's really important to us. We feel like we're doing something tonight.
Many of those gathered here have close connections to the war, including the Master of Ceremonies, Richard Thomas.
I think the feeling is love, and I think the message that they want to say to all our men and women serving all over the world and those that have served before, that we're very proud to be behind them all the way, and I think that's the message.
Been gathering reaction from some of the people who represent you, and as you might expect, they might share your opinion that there were actually two speeches here tonight. One, a rather matter-of-fact speech about domestic policy, the other, a somewhat stirring speech about the war in the Gulf. Let's listen to what they have to say.
A statement with regard to our purposes in the Gulf and the war was all very good and well received. On the domestic side, we'll have to see. He said he's sending us programs on things that I don't know the details of yet, and won't until we, one, get the budget, two, get the specific legislation.
Well, I think that the president surprised a lot of people tonight. All of us expected him to have a strong patriotic message regarding the Persian Gulf, but I think he surprised us because he had a strong domestic message for us as well.
Somewhat partisan reaction there to the president's domestic comments. Republican Ileana Ross-Lehtinen calling it a strong program. Democrat Danny Fussell saying that he's going to have to wait and see some specifics before he can judge the domestic program. By the way, there was one major figure in American government who was not in the House chamber tonight. Secretary of the Interior Manuel Lujan was not there. That was by design, by tradition. During recent State of the Union messages, one cabinet member does not go. That is just in case catastrophe strikes the hall, there would be one member in the presidential line of succession surviving. As you know, there was tight security here throughout the night. we're glad, of course, to see that there were no incidents. Sally?
One person who we thought we located there in the cutaways from the camera was the Iraqi ambassador. Did you notice him there?
I did not. I'm unable to see from my vantage point what the video looks like.
At least all the people in the audience. Okay, well, we'll have more on that later. Thank you. Mark Ledner reporting to us from Washington.
Still ahead on South Florida's news station, a major crackdown on drugs tonight. We are going to bring you the... John, what do you have?
Well, Rick, we're going to get to that in a few minutes and explain to you how this all went down. But this is where they're being processed. If you look down this way, you'll see this is where they're being held. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in custody right now. 2 of them are juveniles. All are being charged with selling rock cocaine, crack cocaine. 4 of them, from what we understand, were within 1,000 feet of a school. That's punishable by minimum mandatory of 3 years in prison. Let's get right to the tape and show you exactly what happened tonight. It's a bit unusual. This is the tactical narcotics team of the Metro-Dade Police Department. What you're looking at right now is Ralph Rayburn, our photographer. He is in the back seat in like a cubby hole inside of a cab of an 18-wheeler. The gentleman getting out right now is a police officer, an undercover officer. He's about to make a buy. You're going to see him right now. You'll see him here in the blue shirt. He is now walking toward a gentleman in a white shirt who is a 17-year-old juvenile at the corner here of the supermarket. And you're about to see what he's going to do is he's going to pass some money to him. He's going up to buy 1 rock of crack cocaine. Okay, it's selling for $5. As you're watching right now, he makes the exchange for money. Now, the officer, the kid's going to disappear inside of the supermarket. He's going in to get change. You'll see him running right now. The officer's thinking quick on his feet, decides, let's do this thing quicker. Let's get the exchange done fast. He decides that he's going to give him $10 for 2 rocks. You see right here the exchange of money and the exchange of the rock. Now, the rest of the units who are on lookout are going to move in, make the bus. This is what's called a buy bus. Basically, the officer's doing this as quick as they can. Here, you can listen. That was a description. That's a description of the man that they're looking for. Officers move back in a couple of minutes, as you're seeing right here. The interesting thing here is the fact that they are using the cab of an 18-wheeler, quite unusual. If we can come back out here live, we're standing with Don Blocker, who is with the Metro-Dade Police Department. The tactical narcotics team is using some different strategy. It appears that instead of the on-foot, on-bicycle, in a different vehicle, that you're looking for a different tactic. Are they getting smarter? Is that the idea?
Yes, we have to become innovative. The subjects know what our normal pattern of activity is, and as a result of that, we have to change our tactics. We have to become much more innovative in our approach to buying narcotics.
Okay, Dan. Basically, what they're trying to say is if you're out there selling crack cocaine or dealing drugs, you got to realize that the TNT guys may be the next person that you sell to. They have already made 1,260 arrests since its inception back in September. Rick?
All right, John Turchin reporting to us live. Thank you, John.
Still ahead, Iraqi pilots are taking off
for landing strips somewhere. Some of them, we've created this picture to show, or represent, we should say, some of them are actually crashing because they simply can't get there. They're running out of fuel, and they're looking for landing strips that simply don't exist. Some of them are putting their planes down on roadways and farms. Right now, as you know, the Iranians are saying that they're not soliciting these planes, and they say they're going to impound them until the war is over, at which time then they will give them back to the Iraqis. Let's take a look at another situation which has been developing today. This is the southern flank of Iraq. Now, you know that we haven't really been hitting their tanks or their Republican Guard, and we've told you the reason for that. The reason is simple enough. Most of them are entrenched, fortified in foxholes, and many of them even underground. Last night, like what you saw in that picture that we made for you right there, that graphic representation, last night there was a convoy, I should say, of many of the Iraqi Republican Guard and many of their tanks, and they were traveling. They were spotted by the U.S. forces, probably the A-10 Thunderbolt tank killers, and they were sitting in the desert then like sitting ducks. The United States was able to destroy all 24 of the tanks. Obviously, a big victory for the United States. The United States says they need to cut off their supplies, cut off their food and water. That way, the Republican Guard needs to move from one location to another. It's when you get them to move from one location to another